Episode 33, Winded City Countdown. We are live. Well, not really. You're listening on a podcast, but it says on my computer we're live because I just started the stuff to get it going. I'm Scott Sternal. I'm with Ben Russo. I'm with Matt Burek via the Google Hangout. And it's been a little bit since we've done this. We haven't done this in a week and a half now. Good to be back.
It feels like a really long time, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today. I was like, man, we haven't recorded an episode in weeks. It's only been like 11 days, but it feels like a long time. So we're gonna ease back into it this week with just the weekly, and then next week we're gonna hit a top 10 list, and then I think we're pretty well settled that 2 weeks from now is going to be our Game of Thrones top 10.
I believe so.
Which means Ben really has to get caught up here because you're 2 behind now.
No, I didn't see this Sundays.
Because when we had talked at the soccer, you were 1 behind then. I didn't know that if you had gotten.
Yeah, I watched it Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, so you're 1 behind.
Yeah.
This week's episode was interesting, but that's for another time. But we're gonna do a top 10 Game of Thrones moments, and I already have a feeling that Tyrion Lannister is gonna be in 5 of those.
Maybe even more.
Maybe more, because he drinks and he knows things.
My kind of guy.
He is. He's my kind of. I like to drink and I pretend to know things, but I don't know things like him. What we do know about now, though, segue, boom. We know about soccer, or football, as it's called in other parts of the world. And Ben, let's start with you because you were very much kind of like, all right, this will be fun. I'm not going to do any chanting or anything like that. And then you got pretty into it out there. You were doing some of the chants. You were really.
There was like 2 that I knew.
Yeah, the good thing was the chants were pretty easy. So, Ben, we'll start with you. So, for those of you that didn't get a chance to listen a couple weeks ago, we had tickets and we went to the USA versus Costa Rica men's international Copa America game that was at Soldier Field last Tuesday. And we sat second row behind the goal in which the United States scored 3 huge goals. So that was really, really exciting. And Ben, let's start with you on your thoughts on the day in general and the experience and what you took away from the event.
I mean, it was a good time. I have to admit. I mean, the beforehand, the drinking, the partying. I mean, that was a ton of fun. It got a little crowded, but that's kind of to be expected. I mean, it was essentially a tailgate, and you're all cramped into one spot. So, but I mean, that was fun. One of the coolest things I thought was the march to the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Just thousands of people, shutting down traffic, and I wasn't chanting at that point, but everybody else was chanting, and it was just a cool thing to see. Then you move to the game itself. Definitely a game. I think a big reason why I didn't get into much soccer is number one, to watch the actual good soccer, you got to get up at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, which is fine, but then to fight with my toddler to watch the game over the Wish and Poofs or something like that is really worth the battle. So, but I will say watching it in a group is much better than watching it by yourself. Like a sport like baseball, you can just sit there, relax, watch it by yourself. Even like hockey to an extent, but like soccer, if you don't have other people there, I don't think it's nearly as enjoyable. But that's just to me, the casual soccer fan. But I mean, yeah, just a totally different experience. Seeing it live as opposed to on TV, and however else you want to put it. But it really was a good time. I think Jake did an awesome job putting that whole thing together. With the tifos and the American Outlaws section, just it was pretty crazy. And then obviously, I think I'm the only one in this group that actually got a soccer ball.
I
grazed it.
You didn't get it. I touched the ball. Matt grazed the ball, and Ben.
How many of you hugged it?
You gave that ball a big hug.
How many of you felt it coming in at full speed? Good thing I didn't break a finger.
Oh man, that would have been hilarious.
Felt it emotionally or physically?
I felt both.
Yeah. I wish I would have kept it. I'm an idiot. I should have kept the ball.
You're not allowed to keep it though.
That didn't keep him from asking me 10
Who
times.
was going to
if
come
he
get
should
me?
have
That
kept
little
it.
kid that I threw it back to?
The security in the stands would have come and gotten it.
We'll see about that. Well, no, we won't see about
We
that.
won't see about
Yeah,
that because
it's over.
It's over.
I
And
might get another one sometime.
You never know whenever the next U.S. game is in Chicago, and hopefully, I hope Chicago did a night. I hope the U.S.
I will say, and granted, it was what day did they play? Saturday was when they beat
Panama,
Paraguay.
not Panama. Sorry.
So Soldier Field, I want to say the attendance was like 36.
I think it was 39,000.
39.
See, I think it was like I honestly think it was like 36, like 35 or 36. I'll have to double check, but I know because Philadelphia had like 51 something. But again, you're talking a Saturday night compared to a Tuesday, so.
And a team that's going for the victory versus the U.S. coming off of a defeat. 39-642. That's the number.
Okay. And
But-
yeah, so.
A lot of things against Chicago on Tuesday. There really were. I mean, between
The weather wasn't great. It was fine, but
It was a little chilly at first.
yeah.
now I'm going to pose you a quick question as in regards to the attendance, Ben. If ESPN has the Copa as well as the UEFA, and they're promoting both at the same level, is that stadium closer to 50?
Well, I think the important part of this question would be you'd have to know what the fuck the UEFA is to actually answer the
Or
question.
I'm sorry, the Euro, not the. I'm thinking the Champions
Okay.
League. It's the Euro right now.
Look at
All right,
that,
Euro.
Benny.
I know
Benny
the-
Soccer knowing what's going
I
on.
know the Euro because that's going on now as well.
Yes, that's what I meant. If ESPN had the Euro and the Copa, is there? Right.
I think a big part of it too is, I mean, obviously U.S. had to win the game we went to, but they were also playing Costa Rica. That's not necessarily a powerhouse. I mean, I think if you get Colombia, for example, there on a Tuesday, I bet you, it's a little more crowded. I think they clearly didn't even put those that middle section on the other side, or that top section on the other side. They didn't even sell those.
No.
So, I mean, that's a lot of tickets that were out. And my understanding is through, like, StubHub and everything, too. And I know that doesn't technically count as...
Right. All the 39,000 is paid. The
So-
39,000 is paid attendance, not.
I just
Actual.
think, everybody made it seem like the tickets were going to be impossible to get. So maybe people just didn't try. I don't know how to... what I mean? Like,
I think
the
there's
stadium itself sits, 66 or 67,000.
Yeah.
That whole upper right side, there was nobody there. They didn't even sell those. So that's how many tickets, you know what I mean? I don't have, I don't know the actual number, but I guess it's a pretty significant chunk of that. So I'd guess there were less than 60,000 seats available to begin with. So, and then, the American Outlaws obviously purchased a good chunk of them. So, I don't know. I guess the matchup, it being a Tuesday night, obviously affected it. I mean, other than the fact, plus it's soccer. It's got a very select fan base. Hopefully it's growing, but, who knows at this point. I know on Saturday, I think, obviously it's FS1, so nobody actually knows what channel that is, but they had their highest Nielsen rating ever for a soccer game on Saturday for USA Paraguay. So
That's good.
maybe it's growing. I just, again, I just think the Tuesday night who they were playing kind of played a big part in it. So
Matt, before we get to you, I got a couple thoughts because Matt, you have written something about this, and I want to go into that. So I have a couple thoughts. I think number one, the biggest thing going against the Copa America is the best players in the world, are spread out obviously throughout the world, but when you look at the 12 teams competing or the 16 teams competing here, who are the names, right? Who are the name players that people? Because to me, like, the league that's being watched is La Liga, or not La Liga, is the Premier League, and then second to that is going to be La Liga if you're watching Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, or Barcelona. right? So if you're not on one of those 23 teams, it becomes a little tough. So there's just not the star power, right? Because all the
And even the
stars.
stars that would be playing, like Neymar, sat out. Messi, was he injured? Is that why he only played?
He had a back, and he only played 30 minutes, and then absolutely lit up.
He was unbelievably dominant.
Right. So I mean, Brazil was like half a team. Everybody was making a big deal that they lost, but most of their big guys didn't play. I mean, some of them did, but not all of them.
Yeah. I mean, not having Neymar obviously hurts your cause there, but
right. So just to kind of that point, though, I mean, so in terms of the 16 teams that are playing, who do you know? Who does the casual fan know? And it starts with Messi, and so Argentina put on a huge showing on Friday night in Chicago, so that was awesome to see. But going into the U.S. game, I mean, and I follow the team, decently, but I don't know all the players on U.S. soccer, and I knew nobody on Costa Rica. I didn't know a single player on Costa Rica, and I think that's part of the problem. Whereas I'm watching the games for the Euro right now, and I know, maybe not ahead of time, but like when they show the rosters on screen for the countries, I know somebody on every squad, right? Even Wales, right? they've got
Bale, yeah,
Bale, right? Like at least even with Wales, I'm like, oh, I know that, and there's Lewandowski who's playing for Poland, and Petr Cech for the Czech Republic, and like so I watch every single one of these Euro games, and I know someone, whereas you look at the Copa, right, and I think right now I've got on like Jamaica and Uruguay is on next year, and I mean, Luis Suarez plays for Uruguay, but I don't think he's going to play tonight.
Yeah, especially after what he did the other night too.
Right. He didn't play in that game, and on top of that, they have nothing to play for. They're eliminated.
Well, did you see what he did though?
Yeah,
in that game?
He yelled at his manager.
Yeah, he punched the bench and got all pissy because that guy's got a few shorter than. Can't even think of anybody. But anyways.
Yeah. Anyways, Matt. So you wrote an article. You wrote something, and we're gonna get hopefully that'll be published in the next couple of days here. But talk about your experience, Matt, and what you took away from the event last Tuesday.
So yeah, I did. I wrote a little thing. I'm sort of going down a couple different avenues with it right now in terms of getting it published. But it's basically a brief sort of summary of what our day was like in. The title of it is A Day in the Life of an American Outlaw. And I think the biggest thing I took away from it was, we all knew, like, when we spoke with Jake a week and a half ago, Jake was very passionate. You could tell he was a guy that thoroughly loved not only U.S. soccer, but I think he loved this organization and this group. I did not come across one person that wasn't super nice to me that whole time. The whole day, I felt like everybody that we dealt with at the Weathermark Tavern, everybody that we dealt with in the two tailgating lots, it truly did feel like a big giant family. And I think part of it's probably because there isn't this huge market for soccer really in this country. But so I think people sort of latch on to somebody, latch on to all these other people that enjoy the same sport as them. So that was one of my biggest takeaways. And now in terms of like the game itself, and I remember Ben made this comment, I think it was during intermission or halftime, whatever they call it, during the game, was we both talked about how we couldn't get over how physical the game was. Like, it was far more physical than I even imagined it was. And granted, you get guys quote unquote flopping, there's people dropping to the ground, but those things happen. But I was really taken away by the physicalness of the game, and I also was taken aback by just how good these guys are with the ball on their foot. Like, Clint Dempsey was making some unbelievable, just he's got the ball and he's spinning around and he's still keeping control of it, and seeing the speed of guys like DeAndre Yedlin and John Brooks playing out of his mind. He's been unreal in this tournament. Jermaine Jones not looking like a 34-year-old guy. Brad Guzan had a stellar game. He played really well too. So it was such a cool experience sitting in the Outlaws section, chanting and cheering and singing and clapping, and obviously for us getting to see 3 of the 4 goals in our end, getting to see Clint Dempsey score a penalty kick on a penalty kick. Like it was a pretty amazing experience for the first time. Scott and I had the discussion the day after the game, like where would you rank this in like your all-time sports moments like you've actually been to? Now granted, I haven't been to things sort of at the same level as Scott has with his NHL playoffs and different things like that, but I honestly say, and this is try not to be stuck in the moment, but I honestly think I put it as one of, if not the best, like sporting experiences of my life, just because of the whole day, everything, the Outlaws, how great our seats were, how great the game was, how the outcome was. So it was a really, really cool experience.
Yeah, Ben, I talked to Matt about this, and I thought it might be a top 5 for me, even with all the playoff games, even with everything else. Do you have any idea where you kind of put this in terms of your games you've been to, experience-wise, enjoyment-wise? Is it a top 5er for you?
I think that's fair to say. I think, again, the experience itself was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm sure there's. I'm gonna say it where I don't think I'm gonna explain it correct. Where I say like there's probably people who would have appreciated it more than me, but that's not the right word because I had a lot of fun and I mean it was a blast. But I'm not like the big soccer guy. Like I enjoy watching it, but I can certainly see where somebody who's a really really big into soccer, would have enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean the experience itself was fun. I think Matt hit on the head. I mean, I have a different outlook on the sport. I mean, I constantly complain about the flopping because there's always a ton of flopping. But yeah, I mean, these guys running full speed, getting clipped, falling to the ground, like yeah, that stuff's got to hurt. But I also think they milk it sometimes. But that's an argument for a different day. I just think yeah, it was like you said, the whole day. Just the people, the atmosphere. One thing that I did pick up on it. In speaking with the people, like, I've been to a lot of Bears games, and, you constantly run into people in the tailgate, and the first thing they say is, oh, I've been a season ticket holder since 1975, or I've been following the Bears since I was 16, for 40 years. There was none of that at the soccer game. Like, I told people, like, hey, we told people, like, hey, this is our first, first big game, but they didn't look at it as, like, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing here. Like they just said, okay, hey, yeah, like let's all talk, let's get together. Like
welcome aboard.
Yeah, like super welcoming with everybody.
Yeah, I was stunned by that to a level. Just every single person we talked to was like, yeah, you guys are in for a treat tonight. It's going to be something really special. And
well, and I think especially if you look at like in Chicago, like the way that some people treat like the Blackhawks, where they're like, oh god, these stupid bandwagon fans, and like a lot seem to be unaccepting of like new fans, which to me I'll never understand because you would think you'd want more and more people liking your team. So like that's what kind of made that cool, that like yeah, we did, like there was a lot of people I talked to throughout the day that like, oh, where are you from, oh, oh, how many games you been to, I had like people, oh yeah, this is like my 4th or 5th game, and I'm like, yeah, this is my first one, and like everybody was like, oh, that's awesome, you're gonna love it, it's amazing.
I think it's just because the fan base is different. Like they are certainly a fan base that understands that they need to find a way to grow their game. Mm-hmm. And these aren't people who are fighting for tickets like you do for the Blackhawks now. I mean, we all know that's where the biggest argument comes with the Blackhawks is we used to pay $8 to get into a stadium where there was 5,000 people. Now it's $100 to stand up behind where we were paying $8 to sit all the way at the top. So I think that's where you see is like hockey fans, the hardcore hockey fans don't understand, like, hey, this you want to grow your game. This is why you get to keep Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane on your roster. Like they understand that, and soccer has a different.
Why you spend to the ceiling and not to the floor?
Right,
on your
and
cap. Yep.
soccer fans understand. And granted, there's they're not the same thing because the hockey does have the salary cap. But if you want to make the game better, if you want to get those kids, it's one of the things I actually want to talk to Jake about was, and I don't know who else we would talk to about it, but getting those American players to not play basketball, to not play football, to play soccer. Like, I forget what I was watching, but could you imagine if like Russell Westbrook was a soccer player? I mean, the guy's
yeah.
big, he's fast as can be. Like
I mean,
that's,
even a guy like LeBron. I mean,
he's probably. I mean, yeah, I
or
think
LeBron at the same time though. It's like
he doesn't
should be
fit
playing
like
football too.
Or even think
like
about
LeBron could be like a
hockey
goalkeeper or something. So
think about some of the hockey players though. That that's one of the things you always see. Like every stadium, the warm up is kicking the soccer ball around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you imagine like a Patrick Kane, playing forward for the U.S. As a soccer player. I mean,
I guess for me, it's more like the speed side. Like you look at, to me, the biggest thing that you always see that I've seen recently that USA lacks, and it's not saying that they don't have guys that have speed, but I would say more likely than not that other team's guy is probably going to be faster than what the U.S. guy has.
Well,
like if we get those guys that can just
give me
take over
Nate,
the speed game.
Nate Robinson playing soccer.
Right,
well,
that's what I mean. Like,
and that's the thing. We have like Bobby Wood, who's really, really fast, but he's not the striker. Whereas you look at Ronaldo for Portugal, and you look at what he does, and you're like, oh, okay, that's Ronaldo, and he. I
think that's what it is.
And he can strike it, and it's unbelievable. And
like the best athletes in Brazil are playing soccer. The best athletes in Argentina are playing soccer. The best athletes in the United States aren't necessarily playing soccer. And it's not to knock the guys that we have, but there's clearly better athletes in other sports that they're not playing soccer. And I think that's what I think the soccer fans understand is if you want to grow the game, you need to get those young fans in there and say, hey, oh my God, look how much fun this is. Like, that's what you need to have happen. And I think that's why women's soccer has, kind of, especially for the U.S., has kind of jumped to the forefront because that's a game that, a lot of girls play. I mean, there's that in softball. I mean, that's what they focus on, and I think that's what men's soccer has to do is try and develop those, get the best athletes to actually play their sport.
So I'm going to finish up the soccer conversation here with something that I realized this week that was really disappointing to me, and that's the 2018 games are in Russia. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. is expected to be there. They have to obviously advance out of their group to get to the Hex and then finish top 3 in the Hex, which they should do. I mean, the U.S. should finish in the top. The U.S., it should be a given they're going to the World Cup every year. But it's really disappointing, and I think it just shows the corruption within FIFA that the U.S. hasn't gotten another shot at the World Cup since 1994. Yeah. And I say that because
not counting the women, you're talking men's, right?
Men's, right? Like it's been the only other time it's been in the Western Hemisphere since '94 was Brazil last year, and that's fine. I mean, Brazil. You say what you want about Brazil and the disaster the Olympics are going to be in a couple weeks here, but it's just the U.S. is such an untapped market right now in terms of what soccer could be profiting off of, and instead FIFA has chosen to push the game into Brazil where the game is huge, Russia where the game is huge, and then it's going to go to Qatar, which I still don't think that's actually going to happen. I think ultimately, I don't know that they're going to have stadiums ready. I think the human rights violations are going to be too much for Qatar. But I was saying to Matt, I was like, with all the political distrust between the U.S. and Russia right now, would you ever go to Russia for the World Cup? Would either of you?
No.
Ben?
Well, no, I probably would never go to Russia, but let alone for the World Cup specifically.
Well, and I think that's part of I think what Scott's asking is if you were, say, as big of a fan of the U.S. soccer team as you are of the Bears or the Blackhawks or something, like, is it worth the risk of going to Russia? Like Scott had made mention to me, like, what happens if you get somehow detained somewhere I'm not really up to speed in terms of how safe it is for Americans to be traveling in and out of Russia, but I'm sure it's not that great.
Rio like the most dangerous city in the world, or one of?
Yes,
I could have sworn I read that.
but not politically, right? Because here's the thing: like I would totally go to the World Cup, even in a dangerous city in terms of crime, because you can travel in groups of 20, 30, 40,
Yeah,
right?
you're
Like,
going to be in a bubble.
right. Like
Essentially.
if I went with the American Outlaws to Rio last two summers ago, it would have been fine, right? Like I'm traveling with all the guys. You have to be smart. You have to say, okay, well, I'm not going to this place by myself ever. Like I can't do that. But with
Isn't that why we have like embassies everywhere?
right, but you wonder about Russia, right? And you wonder about that part of the world between Russia and Qatar. I mean, Qatar this week, the woman accused the guy of rape, and so the Qataris put her into jail for being promiscuous.
Yeah, for adultery.
Right. So
Well, I guess for me, I don't worry about that because I will literally do anything possible to not get arrested.
right,
And
but
it doesn't matter.
right, but it may not matter in that part of the world what you do. Right,
Yeah,
and
because
that's why
things you might find just as normal as can be are, against the
Like what?
law or something. I don't know.
you say anything negative about Russia and somebody hears that, you never know what that can do to you over there.
I mean, people go to Russia all the time. I have a girl I work with who goes to Russia regularly.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not,
not like
so. All I'm saying is, if there's a 1% chance that just because I'm American I might get targeted, that's probably 1% too much for me to want to go to Russia for the World Cup. And I think and the point I'm trying to make overall though is, instead of having the game in countries where it could really grow the game for the U.S., even putting it in Canada, which I think Canada would be a tremendous choice to host the games. You put it in those places, and it's just like, this is not going to help grow the game in North, at least in the United States. And I know that sounds very United States centric of me, but I also think that when you talk about, what is the biggest untapped market for FIFA right now, if the U.S. is at the top of their list, they need to get a new business manager involved, because my goodness, like the U.S. is
maybe U.S. wasn't offering enough money.
maybe. I meyou got to be. Just the corruption.
And the crazy thing is that the U.S. has all this infrastructure. There's stadiums everywhere. You pick any major city in this country, and you have a stadium more than likely that is big enough to hold. I mean, L.A. you got the Coliseum, Chicago you got Soldier Field, which granted it's not that big of a field, but it can hold capacity. You have new stadiums in New Jersey. There, you've got stadiums in Miami. You've got Houston, Dallas. I mean, imagine a World Cup in Jerry World, like a final there. Like that's crazy. It does seem odd that the U.S. hasn't had a World Cup or even a sniff at one in 22 years in terms of hosting. I mean,
yeah. So I don't know, the whole thing with FIFA is one of those things that I know as a newer soccer fan. I've been learning the game and how it all works over the last probably, I'd say, 5 years. It really is interesting to learn more about the corruption and all that kind of stuff that's happening there. So there it is. So soccer, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and I think an overall great experience put on by the Outlaws and U.S. Soccer in Chicago. So quickly before I totally missed on this. The U.S. plays Ecuador Thursday, and what was supposed to maybe be, we weren't supposed to win the group. We were supposed to play Friday against Ecuador. It would have been Ecuador anyways, I think. Right?
oh yeah, I think so.
Right? Like
I
that's
don't remember.
right. I think
you gave us all those scenarios. I don't remember now.
yeah. So I think if the U.S. the U.S. actually would have ended up. Everybody thought Brazil was going to win, so the U.S. winning would have put us against Ecuador anyways. But then Colombia lost, and then Brazil lost, and now we're against Ecuador again. When really, now that Colombia lost, looks really terrible for the U.S. So Colombia is now going to be in a bracket with Peru, Mexico, and probably Chile. Chile is the third-ranked team. No, I'm sorry, the fifth-ranked team in the world right now, and they're playing a game tomorrow night again.
Chile is the fifth-ranked team in the world?
They are.
What?
Yeah, Chile is 5. Argentina's 1, Colombia's 3, Chile's 5, Brazil 7, Uruguay 9.
I know Ecuador's 13.
Yes. So you look ahead. Chile's playing Panama. They should beat Panama, but as we know, that nothing's a given. But you're looking
upset city.
So you're looking
America, upset city.
So now the pod that the U.S. ends up in is they have to play Ecuador and then the winner of Venezuela, Argentina, which is
Venezuela.
Oh my God. And on the other side, Colombia, the bracket that we would have been in had Colombia just taking a draw against Costa Rica. They now play Peru, and then they get the winner of Mexico versus Chile. So should be some pretty interesting games. Ben, you don't feel good about Ecuador at all?
I mean, it was the 13th ranked team with a chance against Peru, but now you're saying that there really wasn't a chance you could have played Peru, so I guess it is what it is. But, I mean, Peru was 49, so yeah, I think I would have rather had my chances with Peru, but
hey, Costa Rica was ranked higher than the U.S. too, so or better.
Yeah,
they were what, like 23?
23.
Not as significantly better, but yeah.
So now the U.S. will have to beat the 13th best team and then probably the best team in the world to win this thing. So it should be interesting. Big game Thursday. We'll check out that, and we'll talk about it some next week. Let's move on to some baseball talk, and we'll start on the South side because holy smokes, they kind of remolded. I can't recall a team remolding without making trades so much.
Yeah.
In my life,
they're just throwing gasoline on an already huge fire.
A dumpster fire. Jerry Reinsdorf. Yeah. If Jerry Reinsdorf's money touches it, it is not good. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
So what have they done in the last week? They got Big Game James, who is now in 2 starts giving up 1 million runs. They designated for assignment free agent acquisitions Matt Latos and Jimmy Rollins. They've signed Justin Morneau, I believe. They've brought
won't be ready until
August.
Maybe.
Because they said end of July he will start his rehab.
Yeah.
And then they brought up Tim Anderson. So I mean that is important. Like that's a big, that's the only real prospect in the system for the Sox.
Like I think people really, and I hope Tim Anderson pans out. I hate watching guys, just like flame out in the majors. But like, again, we said this in a prior one. Like, this isn't, you're not bringing up Bryce Harper. You're not bringing up Mike Trout. Like, you're bringing up a guy who is pretty highly regarded, but he's not a savior. Like, he's not going to turn a 500 team into a team that's going to win, be 20 or 25 games above 500. Like, he's going to have a huge learning curve. He strikes out a ton, and he doesn't walk very much either. So I just think you have to limit, what your expectations are. And I don't know. I was talking with some other people about this, and after you DFA Rollins, you DFA Latos, that's $5 million in salary. Austin Jackson just went on the DL, and God only knows when he's going to be back with the torn meniscus. So that's another $4 or $5 million. I still don't understand why they didn't go after Dexter Fowler or Ian Desmond. I mean, those guys are both carrying it up right now. That's the same money that they would have used. Boggles my mind. They tried to go the cheap route. Talking to like Sox fans, a good chunk of them still believe that Kenny Williams is running this thing because those, the Latos and the Rollins signing, those just smell of Kenny Williams. I mean, it's
the ghost of the past. I mean, ugh.
I don't know. Like, John Heyman was on the Score this morning where he basically said, I don't know what else the Sox can do. I mean, they don't have the chips at this point to go get, like a Carlos Gonzalez if he gets, put on the block. Like, they're not going to go get a big bopper like that. They just don't have the pieces to do it if they're not willing to move Tim Anderson. So I think this is kind of the team that they're going to have, and they have to just try and figure it out at this point.
Well, and I think the biggest, and we talked about this in the offseason, and it's the Sox have not had an identity for a long time. You don't know what they are. Are they spending a ton of money in free agency? No. Are they trying to rebuild their system? No, not necessarily. I mean, every team's trying to, but and it's unfair to do the compare. Well, the Cubs they tanked for X amount of years, and look what it's doing now. But it's a proven system. I mean, you look at Houston. Houston did the exact same thing. It's working, or was working for them. Boston's done it before in the past, and it's the White Sox need to make a decision. Are you going to be a team that spends money and goes after free agents, which there's nothing wrong with that? It's worked for teams in the past. Or are you going to be a team that's going to sacrifice a little bit now, be bad now, and hopefully build up your system for the future? I mean,
I think you know the answer to that.
Yeah, and we do know the answer because Jerry Reinsdorf can't fathom the thought of tanking, and
blows my mind because he makes so much money being bad because of the deal he got with the stadium. It's just unbelievable to me.
He's the reason why. Yeah, and he's the reason why two teams in Chicago right now are the status quo. That they're average at best, and
they're happy about it.
And yes, they're perfectly content because he's making money, and his fear is, and Reinsdorf said before, his fear is, not getting people to fill the seats. They don't fill seats now. They weren't filling seats when they were good a month ago. They're a team that it is what it is. They're the little brother. I'm sorry, they are, and that's not just Cubs fan Matt talking. That's the truth. They are. They're gonna be. They were the little brother in this town in Chicago, even when they won the World Series.
Right, because a lot of the talk, even when they won, was, all right, so when are the Cubs gonna get one?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like I don't think a lot of people are gonna have a lot of when are the Sox gonna get one talk, when the Cubs hopefully get one here. I mean, you have to imagine. Theo's talked before. It's about getting as many chances at the playoffs as you can, right? You can't build a World Series team, right? Because there's no guarantee that you actually make the World Series because the small sample size of the playoffs just dictates that you need to just get there and then you hope and roll the dice, right? And that's the problem the Cubs have had, right? The Red Sox, even before Theo came along in Boston, the Red Sox were still in a position to win a World Series. I mean, they went to the World Series a bunch of times. They went to the playoffs a bunch of times, right? The playoffs were a semi-regular occurrence for the Red Sox. That's the problem with the Cubs, right? Like I can rattle off in my lifetime all the years the Cubs have made the playoffs without hesitation. I think it's 7 times.
Yeah,
I mean that's counting like since you were born, not since you can sit here and say you were watching.
Recollected, yeah.
Right.
I mean, since my dad was born, it's only one more time. It's 84. Then was it 88 or 89?
89,
98, 03, 07, 08, and then last year.
Yeah.
7 times. 7 times in my dad's lifetime, 6 times in our lifetime. I mean, of course you're not going to win a World Series when you only go to the playoffs 6 times in 31 years, or 7 times in 53 years. I mean, it's a recipe for failure. So, and the White Sox right now, they're living off of that 05 title. They've been in the playoffs once since the World Series.
The blackout game, right?
Once for sure, maybe twice.
Yeah. I just think that, and again, this is another thing in just talking with Sox fans, is none of them want to do what I still say they need to do, and that's to move both of those big guns. They need to move Sale. They need to move Quintana. They could rebuild in a year or two by moving those guys. I mean, the haul you would get for Sale, and I mean, the problem now is, Chris Sale to me is still the second best pitcher in baseball behind Kershaw. I'll still stand with that even though his numbers are slowly dropping, but that's the fact. His numbers are slowly dropping. Like he might be back over a 3 ERA or he's just close to it again. So his strikeout numbers are down. I mean, these are the kind of things you start looking going, okay, is there going to be arm fatigue, whatever the case is, but they have to commit one way or the other, like Matt said. You either go all in, you make the moves you need to make to win, go get Fowler, go get Ian Desmond, or you stop trading away these young guys. Yeah, they got Todd Frazier for Trace Thompson, but who's going to have more control? Who's going to have a longer career at this point? At this point, I think you'd rather have Trace Thompson, but who knows? I mean, they won't make a decision, and I think that's their biggest problem is they don't know which way they're going, so they're a 500 team.
And that was the one thing that was always missing from the Cubs rebuild was, everybody was like, oh, the Cubs, how fast can they rebuild? And the answer was not fast because they didn't have anything to trade at all.
Well, they had one guy, and they had Samardzija. That was it.
Yeah, and he's not even close to the caliber of Chris Sale. Right?
No, absolutely not. You could get for Chris Sale. You could probably get 2 or 3 Addison Russell type prospects. I mean, you go to like a team like the Dodgers, or honestly, I don't off the top of my head. I'd have to look at it.
Go to the Cubs. I mean, I know you'd hate to trade him across town, but you go to the Cubs and you say, listen, here's Chris.
But
Sale.
I don't think no. I don't think the Cubs. I mean, yeah, obviously, I think that conversation starts with Schwarber. But I mean, I'm talking if you want to because I think Schwarber's already used a year. Like you go to a team like the Dodgers who have, 3 or 4 guys who are in the top 40 prospects in baseball, that haven't even come up yet. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I think they need to do. Like it's fine if you want to go get Schwarber, but why are you going to get a guy waste major league years for a team that's in the middle of a rebuild? Like that's not what you want to do. Like I think that's why the Cubs rebuild happened so quick is, they're and is going to stand for as long as it should at least is because, Russell, Bryant, Schwarber, these are all guys who came up together, so you're going to have 6-7 full years of these guys. You don't want to go trade for a Schwarber who's going to be on a bad team for 3 years, and then by the time you're starting to get good, now you're starting to get into those ARB years, and you're going to have to start questioning if you're going to pay him or trade him type stuff. So
right, but I think that's the happy medium though for the White Sox, right? Because I don't think the White Sox will trade Chris Sale unless there's something that they can put on the field and say, look at what we traded for Chris Sale. Right, I think even though I think White Sox fans by and large would understand.
But it's counterproductive because how much more are you going to get than Schwarber, realistically?
For Chris Sale?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you don't put
I'm talking about Schwarber itself, like not just like a person. Like Schwarber to me, obviously I would trade him for Chris Sale, but I'm not giving up much more than Schwarber.
I think his potential is so through the roof,
especially in the American League.
Oh yeah, like the value that he would have to an American League team, and I mean, granted, he's coming off, or will be coming off a knee injury, that little scary proposition. But I feel like his ceiling is so high just because he did so much with such little professional baseball experience. Mm-hmm. Which made that because there was that comment that Theo made last year when the Cubs beat the Cardinals there in the playoffs, and on standing there on the field, and he specifically made a comment about Schwarber and said this kid was playing rookie league ball last summer. The
right.
fact that kid can pop up that quickly and have the impact that he did and swung a bat the way that he did, that I think his value is still, even with the injuries, through the roof. And that's not me saying that I think he's better than Chris Sale, but when you're trying to trade, and from the Cubs' perspective, just say that happened. Just say that the White Sox were like, well, we're willing to deal Sale. Would you give us Schwarber? You're already in a place in which you hold the keys. You know what I mean? Like if the White Sox are willing to move him, you have to know that they may settle for less than what his value truly is, or they could. Not that they will, but they could.
I don't know. Pitching is so hard to come by in baseball nowadays.
But here's my question: is it really? How did the Cubs get Arrieta?
No, you're right. But
how did the Cubs get Jason Hamill?
Yeah.
How the Cubs get John Lackey? I mean, John Lester. Both of them. I mean, you got to have the money. Obviously, you got to be able to.
But even at that, Arrieta and Hamill aren't costing you $1 million. Like
no.
You need to have a good pitching coach like the Cubs have, and you stick with your plan. I mean, I like I said, we've said it earlier. I think the Cubs are in a perfect ground. Not in perfect ground, but the Cubs may let Arrieta walk because they understand that you don't win by giving 7-year. Lester was kind of in a perfect place, perfect time, perfect situation. Last offseason where they needed to get that frontline starter because they saw what they had. I mean, none of us thought they were going to win 97 games last year, but
I don't think the Cubs thought they were either, though.
I think the Cubs thought they were going to be were going to be wild card contenders for sure, but I don't think they saw 97 wins.
No.
Like why else are you giving $155 million to a 30-year-old, 31-year-old?
No, that's true.
I think the Cubs, the organization, saw something we didn't see. I don't think they saw 97 wins, but I think they saw that mid-80s that's going to keep you in contention for a wild card in most years.
So all right, so let's reset the conversation here. If you're the Sox, Ben, you're trading Abreu and Sale tomorrow.
I would trade Abreu for sure because he's already, I think, 30 or he's going to be 30 at the end of the season, something like that.
And could be older.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not even a joke.
I mean, I will honestly say I'm not moving Sale unless it's a package that I love. Quintana, on the other hand, we knock him, but geez, man, the way he's pitching, he's probably been better than Sale this year, truthfully. But I'm moving one of those guys at least because you're gonna get a haul for him. Like, you look at, you talk about the Astros who are now making climb back, but even like those Boston teams, like these Boston teams are still being affected by what Theo did years ago by drafting smart and keeping and developing players. And I know Sox fans get bitter because not bitter is the wrong word, but they get angry because the Sox still can't develop a position player. Like what's the last position player that they developed, brought up, and had a decent major league career?
Joe Crady?
I mean, I guess what was he, like 5 years, 4 years?
Or even with the Cubs route and traded for a guy that they put in the minors
and built it like a Jake Arrieta too. I mean,
well, but as far as hitter goes, I mean, because you look at the Cubs.
Yeah, we're talking specifically hitters because the Sox have developed pitchers. I mean,
right. So you look at like Addy Russell, right? The Cubs traded for him, right? And they didn't, they brought him into the system, and then he came in and he played, and it was awesome. But the Sox haven't even done something like that, like a Russell or a Rizzo situation. Right, and then you have, and then, the Cubs are an embarrassment of riches when it comes to developing young bats in
now,
system.
obviously.
Right, but I mean,
back in the day, they had the same situation that the Sox had. They couldn't develop shit.
But that's where the Sox are at right now. I mean, it's just, here are the Cubs, and they've got Rizzo and Addy they traded for. Bryant came up. Soler came up. Schwarber came up. I mean, got hurt.
I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm the Sox, I'm going rebuild mode. I'm done playing this. Build me up. Make me look good for me to just disappoint you.
Yeah, Matt, what would you do? Would you trade it all tomorrow?
I probably would only because, man. Yeah, I mean, Abreu I think's easy. I would have to get a deal that I absolutely love for Chris Sale. Because I'm with Ben. I still think he's probably second, third best pitcher in all of baseball. So, but we've seen it work. Like I talked about earlier, we've seen it work all over the place, all over Major League Baseball. You see other teams trying to take this route. So, I think if you could, I think you have to. But like we said, Jerry Reinsdorf's not going to let that happen.
Yeah, here's the thing. Chris Sale's 27, so if you don't think that you have a contender for 3 years, you have to trade him tomorrow, right? So can you trade Abreu? Can you trade Quintana? Yeah, Sale's the haul. Sale's the guy that maybe can help you set this team up for.
And now's the time too. This right now and then this upcoming offseason, because the free agent crop this coming offseason is awful. And it just got even worse because Strasburg resigned. I mean, the best pitcher is like C.J. Wilson from the Angels or something like that. Like it's bad.
It is. It's terrible. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't blame the White Sox right now today if they're like, oh well, we're not going to make that trade. We don't want to trade Sale. Like I would understand. I mean, you're only 4.5 games out, and you have two starters that can win you win every time they play.
Gotta
So
score runs though.
right, but I mean, you can still like they can point to 2 every 5 days and know like they're going to get a solid pitching performance. So
Right.
I mean 4.5 games isn't insurmountable at this point. Um, so I can understand them not trading Sale. I would trade Sale in a heartbeat. And if I were any team that is knocking on the door, I would be trading for him immediately. Like if I'm the
Yeah.
Cubs, if I'm the I would call. I'd call, and if Schwarber's the starting point, Schwarber's the starting point for me. And I love Schwarber, and I think Schwarber is going to be a great player, but I also don't know where he plays for the Cubs for the next 10 to 12 years. And again, maybe they come back and ask for Schwarber, and you say, okay, well then it's gonna have to be Sale and something, and I don't know what that something is.
No, that's not gonna happen.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. I mean, maybe those are the foundational pieces of a deal, and you let Theo go pick through the Sox system, and he goes, "Oh, you don't think this guy's something? Okay, thanks. That's awesome.
Right.
We'll take him. No problem." All right. For the Cubs, lost tonight to the Nationals. Scherzer was amazing because that guy can throw some strikes. Back to 8.5 up on the Cardinals now. They're 12 up or 12.5 up on the Pirates, which is just absolutely insane.
Pirates are dead. Too many injuries.
Yeah, that's a team that looks dead in the water right now, especially with their upcoming schedule. Like it just looks like it's about to hit the fan for them. Looking at their upcoming schedule, I think they've got the Mets this week, at the Mets, at the Cubs, home for the Giants, home for the Dodgers, at Seattle, at Oakland, at St. Louis, at the Cubs. That's their lead up to the All-Star break. That sound.
Yeah.
I mean, the division was already the longest of long shots at this point. I mean, 12 games over the rest of the season was pretty improbable, but now the wild card starts to become a question because you can't drop these games. You just can't. Oh, so for the Cubs, the Yankees called, I guess.
It's a rumor. I don't know how true it is, but
explain said rumor because I don't believe I heard this.
So
Andrew Miller
supposedly,
oh, okay, yeah.
Well, yeah, supposedly the Yankees called the Cubs and offered Miller and asked for Schwarber. Cubs said no.
I hope they laughed and hung up.
And now the rumor, which couple pretty well-known guys have shot down because, of course, this came. Is apparently the kid who is, saying this rumor, if you will, is the guy who broke the Giancarlo Stanton contract extension, and I guess he had the extension like to a T basically, so a lot of props to him, but he's saying that Cubs and Yankees are in talks for Aroldis Chapman, with the deal being centered around Baez, a prospect, and there was another pretty high up guy in there. I don't remember who it was, but he's saying that the talks are in deep, but I'm calling bullshit on it because
Baez seems like a huge price.
Well, at this point, from what Gordo at the Sun-Times said, Baez, Contreras, and somebody else were untouchable. Cubs will not move them. Might have been Schwarber, I don't remember. So I think it kind of shot that down. I mean, at this point, I understand the Cubs have a need at the reliever position, but you're not going to trade a guy off of your major league roster like Baez, because you're just creating a hole there. I mean, Baez plays a lot. He's been playing great defense. He's been hitting lately. So you're not going to create a hole by trading Baez, to improve another. Like you're going to trade guys who are playing in the minors to improve a hole in the majors. So I don't buy that. But, yeah, I mean, it's nothing new. We understand the Cubs need a reliever, specifically a left-handed reliever. I fully believe that Theo's going to get it one way or the other. I don't know who it's going to be, but we'll see. I mean, I think what Theo's shown is he's going to strike early if he wants them. So I could definitely see something happen in the next 30 days or so.
for sure. So, interesting time. Good time on the north side, and the south side seems tumultuous at the
Yeah, they're mounting
very
a
best.
comeback though. They're only down one somehow.
Eh, whatever. Big Game James is trying to get off the hook, I guess. All right, to Ben's real favorite dumpster fire, the Bulls. Supposedly, the rumor is
There's actually
it's
two now.
Butler for the 3.
What I read was, and again, this is take it for what it is. Somebody out of Boston said it was the 3, Avery Bradley, like their next pick, which is like I want to say maybe in like the early 20s, late teens, and some other guy, Jonas Drebko or something like that, for Butler. So if that was the deal, if I'm the Bulls, I'm hitting that deal button as quick as I can. I don't understand why you would not do that one. The new rumor, and this is one I don't really believe, just because when I tell you the team, you're going to understand why, is the Minnesota Timberwolves
Nope.
are reportedly offering up the 5th pick in some sort of package, which if I'm the Bulls, I'm still flirting with it because I still think you're going to get a decent player at 5, but I think that's just a natural rumor because who the coach is up there, obviously. So I'm not buying that one. I still think the Bulls need to discuss it, especially that 3.
Yeah, I don't think Paxson and Thibs could stay on the phone for very long.
No.
I just don't see that being a thing that occurs.
Wouldn't you love to hear that conversation, though?
Yeah, Tibbs calls. Guys, though.
I need Butler. And Gar's on the phone going, I haven't bugged your phone in Minnesota yet.
Well, John Paxson's you're confused because you don't know if it's John Paxson talking or Fred Hoiberg.
Do you ever
'cause they
feel
sound
like
exactly
John
like?
Paxson just like stares at Gar Forman like what? Like that stare that you give somebody that you just don't understand what they're doing. Like Scott, like you can understand like when like Sebastian does something and you're just like, what the hell are you doing? Like
Yep.
I feel like John Paxson just stares at Gar Forman like that all the time. Like that.
It's how I stare. It's how I stare at the entire Bulls franchise.
Yeah, and that like fatherly like.
It's like I know you're gonna screw up, but I'm gonna just watch it because you gotta learn. You gotta learn. But Gar Forman has never learned.
Supposedly Boston's really aggressively pushing that 3rd pick, so
I am all over that 3rd pick.
I don't know
without
if you're the Bulls. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Jimmy Butler is a 2nd-tier star in this league.
Yeah,
you're not
Buddy,
winning a title with him.
Gimme Buddy and his what did I read? Supposedly he shot
85
3-pointers and made 85 of them in front of the Boston scouts. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. I assume it would be. But give me him. Give me that cap space. Go get me Russell Wilson next offseason. Call it a day. Or Russell Westbrook, sorry, not Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson playing hoops though, I'd pay to see that.
Probably good at it.
I'm sure he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know where the Bulls go from here, but I guess if I'm looking at all the teams in Chicago right now, the Big 5, the Bulls are the farthest away from a championship.
What about the Chicago Fire?
They're far away too because their owner's terrible as well.
I honestly couldn't tell you squat about the Fire.
Go read about the Chicago Fire's owner and just how awful he is as an owner. It is ridiculous. But in terms of the Big 5, I would say the Bulls are the farthest away. So my interest in them is just minimal until they make some changes and get a real plan together. And then the Sox are 4, the Bears 3. The Hawks 2 and the Cubs 1.
I might flip-flop the Bears and the White Sox, but that's close.
I think
at least the Sox have some decent pitching.
Yeah,
you get a couple hot hitters and they can make a run, but
right. Whereas like Unless I'm getting what was that? '09 Jay Cutler, the year that he broke his finger against San Diego, or was
I
that
think that was
2010?
that was like 2011 or 2012.
2011. If I'm getting that Jay Cutler this year, and the defense improves quite a bit, which it should,
Yeah,
then
like quite
then
a bit.
then the Bulls are then the Bears are 3, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm getting whatever Jay Cutler is, which I don't know what Jay Cutler is. Do we even know what he is anymore? An
Yeah,
average to above average quarterback.
yeah, I'd say he pretty much is what he is. He is middle tier. Will always be middle tier. Not that there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with that, but that's pretty much what he
Middle,
is.
middle tier doesn't win you a Super Bowl
I disagree because
unless you have a lights out.
Peyton Manning was absolutely one of the
Yeah, Jay
one of
Cutler
if
was
not
better
the worst
than him.
quarterback last year. But again, you look at what that defense did. So
Yeah, I mean, the only times in NFL history that we've had a quarterback that was average or below win a Super Bowl is when the defense is unbelievable. And the only 3 that I can think of in recent memory have to be Brad Johnson the year Tampa Bay won,
Trent
and
Dilfer.
Trent Dilfer the year the Ravens won, and that's it. Right? Like
If I remember correctly, Brad Johnson was actually pretty good that year.
he was good. I mean, he was, but I'm talking about a guy that I'm
Not a franchise guy.
Yeah, and I expect to make plays down the stretch. Whereas, I had in that Super Bowl, I really felt like the Panthers, if they kind of got some mojo going, or they got ahead, that was my big fear for Denver. Was I don't know how Denver is going to score points if they have to throw the ball.
Yeah, we remember, Scott. You said Carolina was going to win by like 35 points.
I did. I really did. And and then Denver got out in front, and they did not have to run. They did not have to throw the ball. And I expected Carolina to, score some points early, and Denver, they were going to make Peyton Manning throw a sideline pass or two, and everyone's going to go, ooh, here we are again, blowout Super Bowl. But we weren't, and that's that. All right, and finally to finish off tonight, because we've hit a lot of topics, and it's going to be a little over an hour tonight, but that's okay. The Hawks, and we mentioned this in the pre-show, how signing buyouts start on Wednesday, and we don't have an official number for the salary cap, which seems asinine.
Yeah,
that's asinine, right?
I think what it is, I think they have the number set, but they need the Players Association to vote on whatever this. I don't even know what it is. Some sort of thing where you
the
get
escalator or something.
Yeah, the $3 million bump. So I think that's.
But
what it is.
why wouldn't they vote yes?
It was something to do, and again, I don't know the details of what it. My understanding is this affects the older players. It's not taxes. I forget exactly what it is, but if they do this bump, these prorated deals that are out there, it does something with those. So essentially, this does give the teams more money to spend, but as the Players Association, you have to take into account, how it's going to affect, the other half of the players. It was something to do with the long-term deals that are out there.
So the big talk right now for the Hawks is, are they going to buy out Brian Bickle? And I mean, obviously the preference is to trade. And if you listen to the Madhouse Enforcer podcast, I kind of side with Zawoski on this, which is he talks about he just can't fathom that there's not a team that would take a flyer on Bickle for a season.
For a season. That I agree.
Right, don't sit here and tell me that Brian Bickle isn't worth a flyer for a season. If you're
even at this, if you're honestly going to do the buyout, you're talking, what is it, a $1.5 million cap hit this year?
Yes.
So you're not even talking about taking
this year and next year. I believe
it's 1.5 this year and 1 next year. I want to say is what it is, how it breaks down.
It's something.
But even at that, so now you're talking. There's not a team who's willing to take a flyer on Brian Bickle for if the Hawks eat $1.5 million. So that way you don't have that $1 million rollover. So there's not a team who's willing to take him for $2.5 million. Yeah, just for absolutely nothing. I mean, a 7th round pick or something like that is unbelievable. Like, is that how far he's fallen?
Yeah, is he that utterly terrible?
I don't think he is, but I mean, who am I to say? I mean, you just when I'm looking at teams that are near the floor, it just seems like that's a guy that could come in and be all right for you and help you get off of that floor. But
yeah, this isn't like Chris Pronger where like you're taking him to get off the floor and he's literally his brain's mush and he's never gonna play. Like this guy can actually play. Like, I mean, he can skate.
I mean, he's proven before that he can at least do something on the ice. You know,
he can dress for a game.
Yeah. He could be a big body, whether or not he actually remembers how to use that big body. That's a whole other story, but he could dress, he could skate. He's better than John Scott.
So obviously, so like you said, Ben, it's a $2.6 million escalator for the salary cap that we're waiting to hear about. It's either going to be 71.4 or 74 million. So obviously the Hawks, number one, needed to be a $74 million cap. They have 9 roster spots to fill. Right now they only have 679,000 per spot. If they don't do anything with Bickle, cap space with a Bickle trade and they retain half of that gives you a nice bump to 794. I mean, they need to trade Bickle though. I mean, that's to get to $9 million in cap space for 9 spots, which I just cannot believe. I just cannot believe that there's not a team that is willing to take him on. The other thing that obviously comes out about this then is Teravainen tradable? Are the Hawks really going to do that?
No, I don't think they're going to do the like Bickle and Teravainen for something. And I just like, what are you accomplishing with that? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like your forward depth is that great where you can afford to lose Teravainen. I mean, even if you move Tavo for like a defensive guy, you're still creating an offensive hole. So
yeah,
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, yeah, either way, I think it's an agreement that there's no way Bickle's back on the Hawks. I mean, unless
and not even buried in the minors.
Yeah, right, it feels like that bridge has been burned.
Well, that only saves you what, like 900,000 or something like that.
Right. You're better off taking the hit for.
I mean, you're better off just having him dress and be a fourth liner at that point.
Yeah, and even along those lines, I mean, you look at the only way I wouldn't do the buyout if I'm the Hawks is if I look at next year and I go, I need that $1.5 million next year. Like, I have to have it next year.
I mean, I think they do. Don't they?
Well, no, I don't mean like this upcoming. I mean like the year after.
No, yeah, I think
no,
they do.
I think they do. But I mean, there's a difference between needing it and like they have to have it. I mean, they have to have it right now. Right? They really need to just trade Bickle so they don't lose $1.5 million as it is. But Hawks it's going to be interesting. The West feels just like it is the most open thing ever.
I don't know how they're going to do this. I was talking with, I forget who I was talking to on Saturday, but I said, I know the Hawks they just announced that the Hawks were number 2 on Bovada for odds to win the Stanley Cup next year.
Number 1 at Westgate in Vegas.
I don't see it. I think it was Zawoski that put together the Hawks, what a starting lineup would be for the Blackhawks right now. My God, was it bad? I mean, it was really bad. I don't see how that team wins a Stanley Cup.
No, I agree. You have to catch lightning in a bottle in a lot of places. That's really what it comes down to. You have to catch.
I mean, at this point, you're confident in what? Your second line? And what else?
Is it
Corey Crawford.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're confident in Tays, but he's going to be
Yeah.
skating with, what, 38-year-old Marian Hossa,
Oof.
and who else?
And somebody.
I mean, if you re-sign Shaw, I mean, is that your...
Yeah, it's they're in a weird place right now. They're still loaded with talent, but they have very little cap space. So you're gonna have to rely on these young guys. And
I mean, I think if you mix
gonna be
things up,
interesting.
you could put together two lines that I would have some confidence in. But after that, then what? I mean, I don't know.
It's going to be
And
bad.
then defensively, I zero confidence there.
Depends. They got that guy
Unless-
from the, was he Finnish or Russian or whatever? And they signed him for a minimum.
Kempney or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 832.
So
But I mean,
you
these
catch-
are all guys that they counted on. Zawaski had those guys. Like he had Kempney, he had Mott. I don't think he had Polka or Forsling yet, but he had Hartman up. I mean, Hinestroza is definitely going to make the team because he's only at, I think his cap hits like 700,000 or something like that.
Yeah, the NHL has to figure this out.
Yeah.
Because this is not just a Hawks problem. Because like the Kings are in this boat, and
Well, yeah. I mean, eventually every team is going to be because, like, even a team like Toronto who cut all this salary, like, are they gonna if they go and give Stamkos this 12, 13, 14 million dollars or whatever, like they're gonna be in the same boat. I mean, it's only a matter of time before every team doesn't have money to spend.
right, if the salary cap never goes up and everybody has to keep getting paid, that's a problem.
Right.
It's a really, really, really big problem. All right, let's wrap it up here. Some closing thoughts. Ben, we'll start with you tonight. Closing thoughts?
Go USA soccer
Yeah.
and USA in general.
America. We need it now more than ever this week, I feel like.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you got?
I'm a soccer guy now, guys. I never saw it coming, but
Of course you are. You just told us you were. So
it amazes me, like our text conversations, like lately, like within the last 2 weeks, how much soccer has dominated it. For obvious reasons, because we went to the game and such. But it's
is that usually when I stop being part of them?
No, you've been a pretty solid
No.
part of them, actually.
yeah, you've been in on
It's fucking right because I know everything there is about soccer.
them. Ben's soccer corner, the corner
We got-
kick. Boom.
Got our.
Your
You guys
segment.
buy any new kits? Any new kits lately?
No, I just got my one kit for now. so.
I have my one kit that you gave to me, Ben.
Yeah, the ones that you guys wore at the pitch the other day.
That's
yes,
right.
that still has a ketchup stain I couldn't get out of it.
So
Thanks, Scott's wife, for that one.
yeah.
from the hot dogs squirting
Yep.
all over the place. Yeah. My closing thought is we have not done the podcast in so long that the cousin is a father.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Big
we got to give
congrats
the big
to the
shout
cousin.
out to Joey and his wife Michelle on the birth of Willa. So great for them. Really exciting. Joey, I saw a
Super
picture of him.
adorable.
Yeah, I saw the picture of Joey, and he looks not dead. So that's awesome for him.
He looks very
Yeah,
fatherly.
Joey's all over the Facebook now, so he's probably not gonna be too happy about that.
Well, you better get used to it because
Yep.
it's not going to go away. So he might as well just join at this point.
And I cannot tell you how Willa is a carbon copy of him. I mean, it is. It's like a miniature version of Joey.
I feel like someday we need to get him on the show.
I think we should.
I mean, life's a little busy right now for him. I totally understand that, but I think he needs to make his long-awaited debut.
You know what? We're going to have him on in the NFL season. I have no doubt about it.
And like we said, we feel like our interview with Jake Campbell from the American Outlaws went very, very well. And our hope is in the coming weeks and months to get more and more guests on to talk specifics, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, Bears, Bulls,
For sure.
all that fun stuff.
So we'll do it. So that's my closing thought. Congrats to the new family of 3. That is super, super exciting for them. And we'll be back next week. We'll figure out a top 10 list, and we'll get that out there for you. And then we got the big Game of Thrones finale recap and top 10 Thrones moments that we're going to talk about in a couple weeks here. So for Ben Russo and Matt Urick, I'm Scott Sternal. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to subscribe in the usual places. We say them every week: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere else where podcasts are available that you think we can put them to help you out. We'll put it there. We'll figure it out. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week.